Good morning. This is Merceria Ludgood. She is a Mobile County Commissioner for District 1, correct?
Right. Mm-hmm.
Okay, so I'm going to ask her a few questions regarding the question I was given today. So, Ms. Ludgood, what are the issues Christians and churches are dealing with today in relation to eminent domain?
I don't know that the issues for Christian churches are any different from, say, any other religious body. The only thing I can think of that's come up in our community is there was a meditation center that wanted to locate in the city of Mobile, and it went before the Planning Commission, and they were very divided on whether or not they could use it for those purposes. And so the meditation center said that this is a part of our religious observance, and so I'm not sure how they resolved that. But that's the only issue that I'm aware of. But what I would tell you, just with eminent domain, there are a couple of things that have to happen. If the government takes property, it has to be for a public purpose. It can't just be, so for example, if a church was located somewhere close to a mall, and the mall decided that it wanted to expand, well, it wouldn't be a public purpose to try to accommodate what a mall wanted.
Yes, ma'am.
But let's say we were building a road, and it was a road needed expanding, extending, or whatever, then that would be a public purpose. So the church, we could invoke eminent domain to do that. But the thing about eminent domain, if you do that, you got to prove the public purpose, and then you got to pay. So you can't just take it and not pay. So we took a church, and the church was valued at, let's say, $2 million. We'd have to pay them that $2 million so that they would then have the resources to go and relocate somewhere else. But that public purpose that's the big question.
Okay. So if a church was needed to be taken for eminent domain, you would provide them the expenses to rebuild and relocate?
Right.
Okay.
Exactly.
Secondly, can the government use eminent domain as a reason to take over a church?
No.
Okay, just flat out. Okay.
No.
Is it legal for a city to deny a zoning permit to a church because the building they wish to acquire is in a commercial, agricultural, or residential zone?
Okay, so the county doesn't have zoning, so this would be kind of a city question, but what I'll tell you, when they have certain kinds of zoning, and when it's zoned that way, then that's really the only permissible use unless you can get a waiver. And there are some potentials for waivers if the use is not inconsistent. So let's say, for example, you're in a neighborhood and that's zoned residential. If a church wanted to come in and it was able to co-locate in a way that didn't change the character of the neighborhood, then that's probably one of those times where you get a waiver.
Okay.
But if it were, let's say, a residential neighborhood and you wanted to come in and put in, say, a nightclub in a residential, you wouldn't be able to get a waiver for that because that's an inconsistent use. So I think one of the things, they do like a common sense look at, can these things work together, or are they so contrary that it would just create kind of a chaos. So let's say it's a commercial district, and I've decided that I would just love to have my house right in the middle of the mall parking lot so I can get there quickly.
Yes, ma'am.
So that's the kind of use that would be inconsistent. So the county has no zoning authority, the city does, but it has to go through that process. It has a planning commission that's composed of ordinary citizens. And so when they're looking at it, they also look at it from the perspective of, how this affects real people. It's not just realtors, not just developers, that
yes,
kind of
ma'am.
thing. They have, and so I think that's the answer.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you. Okay, last question. In what ways has President Trump used an executive order and eminent domain to move forward his vision for a wall?
I don't know the answer to that.
Okay. That's fine.
I don't know whether I know he's done some executive orders, but I didn't know that he'd done one with eminent domain.
Personally, I didn't either.
Yeah.
So
I'm not even sure he could use an executive order to do eminent domain, because there are all kinds of rules for how you got to do it.
Yes, ma'am.
And it's intended to protect private property. So I don't think he could come in and say, oh, I just want this done and just take it, because you really have to go through a lot of hoops.
Yes, ma'am.
To make sure. And like, for example, when the county does it, we're doing a road and we need like property in front of somebody's house, and sometimes we'll come to an agreement on how much it costs and we just pay them. Other times people say no, and then that's when we have to go to eminent domain. But we have to get appraisals. They have an opportunity in court to contest it. I mean, it's an involved process. So eminent domain is what we call kind of an extraordinary remedy. It's not something that's done casually.